Well, hello, everybody. Today we're going to learn a new strategy about how to pay attention to things in the story that are important and paying more attention to that and less attention to things that are just a little bit interesting and cool. And to do that, we're going to be reading a really fun story called The Llama's Secret. All right, so let's get started. All right, so we're starting theme 8 today, which is all about weather. And all about especially dangerous weather and really extreme forms of weather. You can see that this is a tornado in the background here, and there's going to be something similar that happens in the story today. The story today is called The Llama's Secret. And as I read this story, think about a couple of questions, okay? What is your most prized possession? What is the thing that you have that's the most important to you? And what is the llama's secret? How is the llama sharing a secret with these people? Okay. And finally, this is just a really fun, interesting, funny story. Pay attention to some things that might be really funny about this story. Um, they kind of give you a hint here, excuse me, about words or phrases that are enjoyable. Okay. Turn to page 250 and 251. It kind of looks like this. And I'm going to be reading the story to you and see if you can follow along with these pictures. All right, enjoy. Long ago, high on a plateau in the Andes Mountains, there lived a man, his wife, his children. The family had little, a small stone house, some food to eat, and a llama, their most prized possession. We have we live in Minnesota where we don't really have llamas, but I know some of you have families that come from Ecuador. That's very, very close to Peru, which is where this story takes place. Way up in the mountains in Ecuador and Peru, there are animals called llamas, and you can see a picture of that in the story. It's like, I don't really know how to describe it, kind of a small deer or a small horse, but furry. I don't know. Um, their most prized possession was one of these llamas. In that harsh land, the family led a very simple life. They tended to their needs through hard work. Without their llama to help them, they knew they would have even less of the earth's bounty. Day after day, the man and his wife loaded the llama with sticks and pails of water and went out to work on the land. When the crops were harvested, they were taken back to the little stone house. The llama carried most of the load of quinoa grain, corn, and potatoes. The man, his wife, and his children carried the rest on their backs. The man always the man always provided his most prized possession with the best grass to eat. One day he took the llama to the usual place, but the llama would not graze. Eat, Yamingo, eat. Have your fill of the Eastchew, the man implored, but the llama would not eat the grass. Gently, the man placed his hand on the llama. He put his ear to its chest and he said, "What is the matter with you? I don't find anything wrong. Yamingo, but if you do not wish to eat, we'll go home." The man told his wife how the llama had not eaten any grass in the meadow. "Tomorrow take him to a different place," said his wife. "Maybe the grass was not green and tender enough in that meadow. Perhaps it was turning brown." The next day, the man took his llama along a new path to another meadow. There, he examined clump after clump of the Eastchew to be sure it was good enough to eat. But again, the llama would not graze. For a third and fourth day, the man took the llama to meadow after meadow. Finally, on the fifth day, he said, "Yamingo, if you don't eat today, you're going to get sick and die. You can't die. I need you." Instead of eating, the llama moaned, "Een, een," and thick tears rolled down his face. "None of that moaning and crying," shouted the man. "I am tired of your stubbornness. Must I whip you with this cornstalk to get you to eat?" The llama looked up at its master. Quickly, the man stepped back, expecting the animal to show its annoyance by spitting, because that's what llamas do. Instead, to the man's amazement, the llama spoke to him. "My master, I cannot eat, for I know what I know. It is great, great sadness." "Ah!" the man cried. "What do you know that makes you so sad?" he asked. "A terrible thing's going to happen. The world as we know it is coming to an end." "How do you know this thing, Yamingo?" "Mamacocha, the sea, has warned that great changes are coming," the llama said. She's threatened to flood the earth. She'll drown and destroy everything in her path. Is there a way we can save ourselves, Yamingo? The frightened man said. Wilcacoto, the highest peak in the mountains, that will escape the flood, said the llama. Listen carefully and do like I say. Go, get your family. Ask your wife to take enough food for 5 days. The man ran home and the llama followed. Outside his stone house, the man could see his wife spinning cloth from the llama's wool. The children were playing. Wife, wife, we have to stop everything, cried the man. We have to leave our home. A great flood is coming. How do you know that? She said. Our llama told me. Mama Cocha is angry. She's going to flood the earth. We have to go to Wilcacoto. There, we'll be safe. Our llama spoke? Cried the wife. Husband, you've been too long in the hot sun. When she looked in his eyes, she knew her husband was telling the truth. So the man, his wife, and his children hurriedly dressed for their journey. Just as they were leaving, the llama reminded them to bring enough food for 5 days. With the llama in the lead, they started their journey. Soon, they came upon a herd of guanacos grazing in a meadow. A great flood is covering everything, the llama told them in his own tongue. You have to follow us to the peak of Wilcacoto. The guanacos stared blankly at the llama. There is no time to waste, the llama continued. Move quickly or you're all going to drown. At last, the guanacos understood and trotted up the slope behind the llama. So I think guanacos are like, maybe they're like sheep. I don't really know, but now there's a family, a man and his wife and his children. There's a llama and there's a herd of sheep following all of them. So that's all of these people going up the mountain. As the travelers approached a mountain lake, a flock of waiting flamingos sounded an alarm. There's no need to fear us. We're not here to harm you, the llama told them in their own tongue. But beware, a great flood is covering the land. Save yourselves. Fly to Wilcacoto, the highest peak in the mountains. The flamingos took flight. The climbers grew tired, and they began to slow down. There's no time to rest, cried the llama. Look, Mama Cocha, the sea is rising. If we stop, it will catch up to us. So the travelers hurried up. Now the group came upon a mother puma and her cubs, which is like a small tiger. A mother puma and their cubs. The mother was teaching the babies how to stalk prey. Stop, the llama told them in their own tongue. There's no time to hunt. Mama Cocha, the sea, is going to flood everything very soon. If you want to survive, come with us to Wilcacoto, the highest peak in the mountains. The pumas listened, but all the while they were eyeing the other animals hungrily. No, no, behave. We are all in this together. Peacefully, the pumas fell in line and followed the llama up the mountainside, which I think is amazing because pumas really like to hunt a lot of those animals. Farther up, chinchillas were basking on the rocks. Wake up, the llama said to them in their own tongue. Mama Cocha, the sea will flood everything very soon, even these rocks. If you don't want to drown, follow us to Wilcacoto, the highest peak in the mountains. The chinchillas understood, and they soon followed the crowd. I have no idea which one of those animals would be chinchillas. I don't know, but it looks like a lot of animals, right? We'll see. A mother and father condor on a high rocky ledge. These are birds. These are big birds like eagles. They were on a high rocky ledge and they were watching their baby try its wings for the first time. When the llama told them in their own tongue about Mama Cocha and the flood, they too headed for Wilcacoto. Out of curiosity, a family of fox came by to find out what was going on. They had never seen a procession of so many creatures before. It was like a big parade. The llama told them in their own tongue the story it had told everyone. But the foxes didn't believe the llama's story, and they didn't follow. And so it went that the llama told each and every creature it met about the flood. The llama told them how to save themselves. Most listened and followed. After a long, hard journey, they arrive at Wilcacoto. At the top, people and animals huddled together and watched the rising waters. Look, cried the man, pointing toward the family of foxes they had seen on their journey. Hurry, the llama called out. The foxes barely escaped the rushing waters. They could only find a little room for themselves at the top of the mountain, so the tips of their long, bushy tails had to remain in the water. Oh, there wasn't enough room for the foxes. Suddenly, the sun disappeared and it became icy cold. Everyone was frightened. Until that moment, they had never known such darkness. Inti, the sun has died, they all cried. It fell from the sky into the water. Mama Kocha swallowed it up. Don't be afraid, said the llama. The darkness will not last forever. And then, just as suddenly, the sea stopped rising. As the llama promised, the sky got light once again. The sun didn't die, cried everyone. It was resting in the waters, the llama explained, after many hours of hard work warming the earth and all its creatures. Do not be afraid. The sun will never die. Inti will always shine for us during the day. But at night, while the Inti is taking a bath, Mamakia, the moon, will come and cool us off and grace us with her beauty. Mamakocha was satisfied. Her waters began to recede to the place they can be found today. Those gathered at the top of Wilcacocco began their descent. The first to climb down were the foxes, who are now wore a black stain on the tips of their tails to mark the spot where they had touched the waters of darkness. Today, in the Andes Mountains, there are people and animals who are the grandchildren of the grandchildren of the grandchildren of the ones who went to Wilcacoto. To show their gratitude, the people adorn their llamas with little bells and ribbons. They take them up to the graze where the ichu is light and green and tender. While the llamas graze, the men play their flutes, their quenas and their antaras. The llamas, in turn, move their ears when they hear the music. That is the llama's way of expressing pleasure. No llama has ever spoken in human words since that time a long time ago. Isn't that a fun story? I kind of like that story. So the llama saved everybody from getting drowned in the water, saved all of the animals and the people too. And in return, the people play a flute. That sounds nice. It's kind of a nice trade. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is determining importance. What were the important parts of the story, and what were the parts that were not quite so important? They were still interesting, and we're glad they're in the story, but they didn't have much to do with the big idea of the story. And a couple pages farther along, we're on page 260 here. If we go a couple pages farther along, we could see that there's two types of information in the story. There's the important parts that tell us the important theme of the story or the important details of the story. And the other things are still important, but they're more interesting. They really are just extra things to give the details some life. There's a few things that tell us about the main theme or the big idea. This story was mostly about how the llama saved all of those animals and people by bringing them up to the top of the highest mountain, Wilcacoto. That is the important part of the story. Everything else helps the story, but isn't about that main idea. So let's look at this part right here. Here, the llama tells the man how to escape the flood. He is to go to the mountain and take enough food for 5 days. That is an important detail because the llama's words tell him how to stay alive in the flood. And that's the big idea. But down here, the wife is spinning cloth from the llama's wool. That's not quite as important. It's interesting, and we're glad it's in the story. It should be in the story because it kind of helps us understand what this family is like. But it isn't interesting, or I mean, it isn't important compared to escaping the flood, which is the main point of the story. It's interesting because I didn't know llama's wool could be used for cloth. And it really is really nice cloth. All right. Your job for today, this is a long lesson, so you only have a little bit of work here. There's these 5 words, all right? Darkness, flood, llama, mountain peak, and saving. The llama's secret is mostly about, what is it mostly about? And you can tell here, here's a picture of one of these words. I'm not going to remind you which one. Here's a picture of another one of those words. And then there's more. All right. As always, if you need help with these, your teacher could probably work with you on it. And otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.